can't hear you.
Hello, hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me well?
I can. I'm putting on my headphones though to make it
Okay.
easier. Is Justin on?
No, so I'm not going to go. Oh, there he is. Yeah.
Hey, what up, guys?
Hey, I'm
How
going
are
to
you?
start the Facebook Live, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right. And we're recording
All right.
already, so.
Are you going to get questions and stuff? Okay, that's good. How's everybody doing?
Awesome,
Good.
awesome. A long
You
time no
got the
see.
gang.
Good to see everyone.
Got the gang back together.
I know, missing a few, but it's good to see everyone. I can't remember the last time we've all spoken together at the same time.
I mean,
It's been a
since you
while.
left us, Justin.
I know, right? I was out. I was out of there. I was out. That's cool. Good to see everybody.
Yeah.
Tiana, are you in Arizona? Where on the streets you're in Arizona?
No, I'm in Las Vegas.
Oh, you're in Vegas. Were you ever in Arizona?
No.
That's how long it's been.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You're in Vegas. That's big. That's so cool. Orange Theory. Is it Orange Theory?
Yeah. So I'm running a couple of Orange Theories with a business partner.
Wow. I've never done it. I've done CrossFit. I've done like metabolic, or I think it's called like metabolic or something like that. I've done Peloton, but I've heard of Orange Theory, but not familiar with it.
Yeah, so HIIT workouts, so we have rowers and treadmills and weights, and every day is a full body workout and every day is different. So it's really great for the cardiovascular system, which, ultimately keeps us alive for a longer period of time. People don't normally like to do cardio, so it's really good for people that don't want to do that. And of course we do weights as well, but I think it's, in terms of longevity in life, it's really good.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That is so
Yeah.
cool. Might have to check it out. I'm gonna come check it out when I come to Vegas.
Yeah.
There you go.
The best part is like actually running an organization, right? Because it's like, I always wondered what we teach, does it actually work?
Yeah.
And it does. It's all so great. Like it really is. What we teach is amazing for organizations. And I didn't realize the value until I ran one.
That makes sense. That's cool.
Good to see it in action. Yeah. So awesome to see you guys.
So what do y'all doing?
I wanted to take a moment and like just get us all squared away on like what we've been up to and stuff like that. And this was kind of my idea to get us all together because I wanted to talk. One, to catch up with some friends, right? I think it's good for ourselves to connect with people that we care about, right? And keep ourselves sane. But also, I respect both of you professionally, right? And like as Diana just said, is applying these skills in a different way. And then Justin, you working with high performers in professional sports as well as outside of that. And my focus has been always in the military and even in the corporate world, right? And so bringing all of our knowledge and experience with all these different types of populations and seeing what we're seeing when we're working with our clients, or for Diana's case, her employees, what she's doing for them to help them manage the stress that's going on during this time, right? And so, Diana kind of gave us a little bit of insight, but Diana, do you want to go into a little more of your background of like where you're coming from, what you've studied, and how you got to where you are?
Sure. So I'm a counseling psychologist, right? And then I worked with you guys with the military, which is how I met y'all, and we got to work together, which I thought we were a really great team. And then I went on to do private consulting for organizations for the city of San Antonio and federally. I got that as well. And then I went on to own a couple of Orange Theories like now. I still see patients, so I still keep up with my practice. I'm still licensed. And then I have about 40 employees that we manage and run, coaches, and these people are motivating other people, and so that's what I'm up to.
That's so cool. That's so cool to hear. Robert, do you remember when Deanna joined the team? When she came and joined, I did like your breath of fresh air, just, I loved how that you teach to the point. I love your insights, psychology and the mind, and it's awesome. It's so cool to see. I haven't seen you for years. It's so cool to hear what you're doing. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
How about you, Justin? What have you been up to since the last time you saw Deanna and you know?
Yeah. And for those who watch this or are watching, born and raised in Los Angeles. I got my bachelor's degree in broadcast journalism. So I wanted to be a sports broadcaster, wanted to be on ESPN. And then my first day of my internship, I realized, terrible mistake. I don't want to do that at all. Then I moved into being a high school teacher. I was a high school teacher for 5 years. And then kind of fell into sports psychology. Just got a master's in the psychosocial aspect of sport, sports psychology, performance psych. And then from there, opened up my own kind of consulting practice. Then I went military, IMG Academy, and then Red Sox, Browns, now with the Rays. But yeah, Melissa and I, we live here in Florida, Bradenton, my wife, and then we have 3 kids, 13-year-old, 12-year-old, and 11-year-old, and they're all doing well.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, and Justin, to brag on your kids, to brag on your kids a little bit, Justin's got some superstars in the making. Movie stars, music producers.
They're crazy.
Yeah, it's great, and they're amazing. Yeah.
Thanks, brother. It's been fun. It's been fun to see them just kind of water their ambition and see where they go. And so we'll see what ends up where they continue to do. But it's been fun.
For sure. Well, to I guess last but not least, but a little bit about me. I was a soccer player, and I had 5 knee surgeries, and I played in college. Got to play literally 2 games in college. But in between my knee surgery, in my first game and my second game in college, a sports psychology consultant came to talk to our athletic department. And next day I went and changed my major. I was so fascinated by what he said, and that led me on the course that I've been on for the last 15, 16 years. So I got my degree in psychology, master's in counseling psychology with an emphasis in athletic counseling, and then worked in college as an academic advisor for athletics, and then moved into the military, and ever since then been working primarily with that. And then I've done some stints with Major League Baseball. I have a private consulting company as well, where we do mainly corporations and executive leadership type coaching, but with an emphasis in sports psychology, and dabbled in a lot of different areas in and around there. But yeah, you're in San Antonio, quarantined like everybody else, right? Trying to homeschool, trying to manage, work, as well as helping the kids get through their academics and just stay sane themselves, and us included, right? So, but yeah, everybody's doing good. So it's always good to see you guys, and it's fun to even just start this conversation. So I was just curious, and like I said earlier, kind of in my little introduction, was what are you seeing in terms of either employees or people you're working with? Like, do you see any common trends and patterns in the things that people are talking about or worried about or focused on during this crisis, we're going through?
I am seeing just this. It rocked my world when it first happened, to be quite honest. I'll share with you just like kind of a personal experience. We're playing against the Pirates, spring training, and we get sent home. Like we're in the middle of a game against the Pirates, find out, hey, we're don't come back, essentially.
Wow.
It was crazy at the end of the game. And so, it just kind of rocked the sports world. And I was literally affected our family. And I remember waking up the next morning when I should be early in the morning in the clubhouse and back to normal, back to do my thing. And I remember I just didn't want to leave the bed. And so I was like, oh, this is interesting, because I'm a big time morning person. I'm pretty habitual.
Wow.
Like I'm on point. Like I don't miss my mornings. And
I remember.
And I right.
It's
I
like,
didn't
talk
get up.
already.
Right,
Like,
exactly.
we just got here. Just got
Yeah,
here.
right. And so I didn't want to get out of bed.
Oh.
And then it carried on to 10 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon too. I'm just like, what is wrong with me? Like, I literally was experiencing this where just like emotionally, I just felt numb and it's sad and depressed. And I'm like, what's wrong with my life? And my wife and kids, and they're like, hey, are you okay? And I wasn't okay. And I couldn't explain it. And then the next day comes, the exact same thing. And then the next day comes, the exact same thing. And I'm finding myself, then I'm beating up on myself. I'm like, wait a minute, I shouldn't be feeling this way. I shouldn't be depressed. I shouldn't, I'm a mental skills coach. And then it hit me like, that's where it hit me. I'm like, no one's immune. Like no one, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel depressed. And if I'm feeling this way, then I can't imagine, maybe it's just me. And then to call some of my other friends and colleagues and like, yeah, no, Justin, we're feeling these feelings too. And the next thing you know, you talk to friends who are psychologists and you Google it, and you're like, oh, there's something called, what's it called? Like adaptation syndrome or disorder or something like that, where it's basically you're adapting to your new norm. Adaptive disorder. Yeah. Adaptive disorder, where you're adapting, you're experiencing these feelings. And then once I got my schedule under wrap, once I identified, okay, what's my plan, adjust this new normal, I was able to navigate through it. But and then when I talk to people, they're like, yeah, they kind of went through their own waves as well. But I had a firsthand experience of what that was like.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. It's always, we have this title, we have these skill sets that we're teaching other people, and sometimes we're, like doctors are sometimes the worst patients, right? Because they don't follow some of the advice that they dole out, and that happens to us, sometimes as well, right? We think we should know something. I've seen that a lot, where people feel like they should be in a certain place and they're beating themselves up because they're not there, right? Like they're not as motivated, they're not as productive, right, in their day, and they're not acknowledging that there's something going on in the world that actually is going on, right? And so it takes a little bit, for sure.
Yeah.
How about you, Deanna?
I'm quite the introvert, and I forget that because most of what I do is extrovert work. I spend all day at the studios and with and manager meetings and meetings with the head coaches. So when I had to stay home and we moved everything to Zoom, well, first of all, I think I was in shock for a little while. I like to close businesses and to try to figure out payroll and how you keep people on payroll. All of that was another job. So we got busier when things shut down, and then had to have meetings with every single employee. So you're just in meetings all day. But I'm such an introvert, and I forgot that staying home was actually not very difficult for me.
Yeah.
Because I actually get enough interaction through being really busy, because we got busier at first for a while. And then through Zoom meetings, honestly, I got my fill. And so I think the other thing too is that I'm pregnant, and I think my body wants me not to go somewhere, and I didn't realize that. So I think my hormones have changed, and it's made me like not want to move as much as I did before. Because I remember being more, just inquieta, we say in Spanish, but just like not wanting to sit and like wanting to go.
Mm-hmm.
My husband has said, like, you're more normal now. Like I can go at a regular pace now. But I'm more of an introvert, and that's what I've seen with my employees. The people that are more introverts, as long as they have enough work and enough meetings, they're good. The extroverts are hurting.
Yeah,
they're in pain.
I'm hurting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm struggling. I need some social interactions. It's strange. I was actually very curious about that. I was telling somebody the other day, I wanted to do a poll of introverted friends versus extroverted friends, and because I would imagine the introverted are doing better, right? Just because that's how they get their energy, is by being alone. My wife is doing really well. She loves working from home. You know, she's more of an introvert, and I'm pulling my hair. I actually got asked to go back to the Air Force Base because the students are struggling a little bit, right? Like with COVID, their mission is still continuing. So the pilots are still continuing to train, and you know, it was so we were asked to do our work virtually, and then at some point they realized that we could be benefit to them by going in, and without even asking my wife, I was like, yeah, I'll go, right? Like I need that human interaction. I mean, it's only twice a week. It's only for a couple hours at a time, right? And I'm wearing a face mask, and we got protective gear and social distancing, but still, it's fun to see people that you know face to face, right? Versus on a computer screen. You know, obviously you go to the grocery store, you're seeing people, but seeing people that you care about, you want to interact with, right? It's given me a boost of energy, and that's only been a couple of weeks that I've been doing that. But yes, I've felt some of what Justin was feeling, right? And kind of like that malaise of what's going on, what am I doing, kind of trying to figure out my schedule as well. And then praise to the teachers out there in the world, you know, because to homeschool our kids has been, I know it's a very personal, people have real challenges, right? And I don't mean to make light of it, but that's been our biggest struggle, is keeping the 5-year-old busy. There's only so much ABC that you can do, you know, and I've been fortunate where we both financially are doing okay. We didn't lose our jobs, right? So we're able to continue to work. Our family's healthy, right? Nobody's sick. So we have all those things going for us. So then what presents itself are other challenges, right? And the big one is keeping our 5-year-old busy, right? and keeping her focused, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, so true. What, like the different obstacles this situation is presenting. One thing you're hearing about now is something like Zoom fatigue. All of these Zoom meetings and all of these things are dead. People are more emails, more technology, eyes like staring at screens, and also where people are feeling this desire, like, okay, I better. Where you think, okay, you're working at home now, it should be easier. But now, parents with kids, you're also homeschooling your kids, and so. It's some people now, their desk who don't have offices, they have now their kitchen table is their desk, and they're trying to be professional, but they have kids running around behind them, and so it's a lot for some people.
And the people that don't have kids or don't have family, one of the things I've seen, I've had a couple of clients that's their situation, and they're super lonely, right?
Yes.
So then they have the opposite, you know, like I had seen on a Facebook post, somebody was like, staying at home all it's cracked up to be if you don't have kids, right? You know, meant as a joke, right? Like you're living the life and enjoying it. And I had a couple clients that are like, no, it's not all it's lonely.
You're not getting enough you're not getting enough of community. There's no community.
Yeah, there's no community at all, right? So so it's being mindful and aware of that, and then figure out strategies, right? That Zoom fatigue. I took a whole week off of social media last week just because that drains me, right? And so, but it's the way we're communicating now, and so I made a purposeful choice to back off a little bit and not have to like post every day or be on there all the time, because that drains me. I'd rather real human interaction. So
yeah. Have you guys adjusted? How is your guys' new schedule? Do you guys have your quarantine schedule? What's that look like?
Yeah, I get up every morning just the same. I get dressed just the same. I'm at my desk every day, 8 o'clock, and I need structure. Otherwise, I'll get depressed, and I know that. Like, I'm not someone that it can enjoy. I wish I could really enjoy television and like watch it, but if I watch television during the day, it makes me depressed. I can't do it. It has to be maybe a weekend or something. So I know even if I didn't have my job right now, I would still have to make up work. I would just have to make something up. I would make up a project and I would come to my desk and I would work. Otherwise, I get depressed or anxious, and I know that about myself. So I create a schedule and I work 8 to 10 hours every day. Our business has been very busy. move, because we moved everything online. We moved all the workouts online, and now we're getting ready to, like, at some point we have to reopen, and we have to reopen a different way. So, you know, but even if I didn't have that, I tell my clients, like, get up, you know, get dressed and keep your schedule and work. A lot of my clients are still working, they're professors, for example. And so I'm like, you have to make a schedule, because later never comes. And your body and your mind tells you, well, if you just relax, you'll feel better. But if you just relax, do you feel better? You don't. We feel good with a sense of accomplishment and doing something. You have to get tired first to relax. And I think it's really hard to get moving for people once you're stopped, right? It's the law of inertia, right? Like, if you're not moving, it's hard to move. So you have to just pretend that you have to move, and then you'll get the ball rolling.
It's funny you say that. Not funny. I don't know why I just said funny. It's not funny, but it reminds me of when you're talking about working versus relaxing. So I remember reading the book Flow, or just Flow Theory, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi's work, and he says a lot of times, like, the experience or is one of the best feelings. Like, we love to experience it, and people think, oh yeah, oh, I'm gonna experience it. I don't want to work. I want to be on the beach relaxing, or I want to watch TV. You don't experience flow in those moments. You experience flow when you're absorbed in a task, whether it be work, or whether it be a conversation or something. That's interesting that you say that. I'm very similar in terms of I'm at my best when I feel like I'm working. I'm just like you. I'm just like you in terms of not wanting to watch TV, or relaxing isn't real. It has the opposite effect for me. It's interesting you say that. Remind me of that.
I have no problem relaxing.
TV all day. Like, can you watch TV all day? Wait, but
no, I don't watch.
Can you do that and be happy?
Right.
I mean, I don't even know what that's like, right? I mean, it's not like I do it, right? But I can relax before I work, right? Like, I can do that. I can take a break before I need a break and then work. That's how kind of my brain works. I'm also a night owl, so I get energy later in the day. I'm not very productive in the morning. But I have kids, so that gets me up and gets me engaged and active. But I get a lot of work done, particularly like administrative stuff, but just where I'm really engrossed and engaged and working on slides and things of that nature. I'll do that in the evening, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and I can work pretty productively. But it's not like I'm relaxing all day either, just because it's not feasible in my life. Would I like to? Maybe. I don't know.
Deanna, what do you say? Like, how do you guys, or even both of you, like, if someone's like, oh, you're a workaholic. Oh, you need to learn. You need to learn how to relax. Like, how do you respond to that? Do you feel you need to learn how to relax? Does it feel like you need to relax?
No, although I will say yes and no, I guess. Yes, I realize now how stressed out I was at certain points. I didn't actually realize how stressed out I was until we had to slow down. I was like, wow, sometimes I thought things were such a big deal and they really weren't. And I would get wound up. So it did help me realize that. But I think that my idea is that people who are really happy in life over time, so let's say like into your 70s, 80s, that those people are really good at having hobbies and keeping themselves busy. And if you can't do that, then you're going to have a really hard time aging, because, you have to have tasks that you're doing, because when you do things, you create relationships and community and movement, right? And your body's movement. If you're not moving, if your cells are not moving, you're dead, right? So I think that there's something to be said about people who can entertain themselves and like to entertain themselves. Because I think you're going to age well, as long as you can do other things besides like what someone tells you to do, right? You can create your own work, basically. Can people be workaholics? Absolutely. But you'll see, because they won't have relationships, right? They won't have friendships. They won't have partnerships. They won't know their neighbors. Okay, to me, those are sort of indications. Like, if you don't have a relationship, we know relationships is one of the top ways that we can predict longevity in life. So if you don't have that, maybe then you have problems with being a workaholic. But if you can have balance, then obviously work is part of that movement and that health. That's what I think.
Yeah.
No, I agree. I agree with that. Yeah, because I find myself, I've been told or even asked, like, do you just work too much? Like, is this what I, like you, I'm like, do I work too much? And that makes me have a question. Like, I do have my relationships, my wife, my kids, and spending time with them. And I wonder, like, what are those? And I have my friends and obviously church and all those things. And my hobbies are reading books that will make me better. My hobbies are making video. I just love to make videos or write. I love writing, and I happen to write about optimizing performance. For me, it feels like a hobby, but someone's like, oh, you're working too much. I'm like, oh, I just really enjoy writing about this kind of stuff, or making videos or podcasts. It just seems like a hobby to me. Like we're on episode 1142. But it just literally does not feel like work. It's like, oh, it's fun. It's kind of interesting. But I sometimes I get in my own head. I'm like, am I? It's weird. But I'm happy. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. But yeah, it's I'm always wondering.
Yeah, I think to chime in. So I have my hands in a lot of different pots, and I'm working more than I ever have, and I like it. Because it's just like you, Justin. I'm enjoying it. It's something I like. One of the things that I've noticed on social media a lot is people are claiming that we should get something out of this situation, right, and grow. And if we haven't gotten better at something, I think if you have the bandwidth to do that, great. I think it's being okay with who you are, right? Like, so if that makes you happy to write and podcast about the thing that you also work in, then do it, right? It's when we feel this pressure, external pressure, or sometimes we've internalized that external pressure where we feel like we have to constantly be optimizing ourselves. And that's where I think we can run into problems, right? Like there's mindfulness is the big thing right now. And people check the box, right? And then remember that phrase from the Army, right? Like, just check the box. I've meditated today. But they didn't really meditate. They just hit the app. They did the 5 minutes and says they've meditated, but they didn't really get the benefit from it. So it's, why are we doing the things we're doing, right? Like the phrase that I know, Justin, you use, I use it too. Some version of it is live life on purpose with purpose. Like be purposeful in what we're doing and what it is that we're trying to achieve, right? And so I think that is the ultimate litmus test of whether we're working too hard or not, is if it's matching our purpose, then I think we should continue to do it. And if it doesn't, reflecting on that, right? And trying to make sure that we are in line with our values and the things that matter to us. Because if you're working too much to achieve a goal, but you're not aligned with your values, then I think, and you see that with I see it with my clients, I see it with athletes, military service members, CEOs, like they have this goal, but what they're working on doesn't necessarily match their values and the things that truly matter to them.
How do you know you're living and working? I have my baton.
Yeah.
How do you know you're living and working in alignment with your values?
So I think the thing with relaxing, so I'm sorry for bogarting this, but this part of the conversation. So for me, is I think that one of the things that we need as in general, and I say that lightly, right? Because I think people do whatever they want, right? I think you guys know me well. Like, you live your life, if that's what you want to do, you do it. But I think one thing that people could benefit from is self-reflection, is creating space to think and check on yourself. Am I living the life that I want to live? And I think, these pandemics can create opportunities, like as Deanna was saying, is about what was I doing and then what impact is that having, and do I want to continue to be so hyper-focused on this thing that in the grand scheme of life, if it's a day late, it doesn't change my world, right? So I think we are such a go world that I don't think people need to relax per se, but I would say it would be beneficial if people were to reflect, be curious about themselves, be curious about the world around them. And with that curiosity, they can gain some accuracy about their purpose and their values. And it might change, right? From week to week, month to month, year to year. That's maybe more unlikely, but it can, right? Like something matters. I mean, think about this pandemic. 2 months ago, what we were focused on is very different than what we're focused on now. And so it can change that quick. And and reevaluate things for ourselves. I don't know. What do you think of that?
You know, I think about what the Dalai Lama writes in his book, The Art of Happiness. He writes about your head and your heart being in a line, you know, and he writes about how do you know that? And it's really when no one else is watching, right? When no one else, like if nobody else cared about your work, for example, would it still fulfill you? If you could, for example, you put out these videos, or you write something, or, you know, you complete a task, would you still do that if it meant you get nothing and you have, no one praises you, right? No one else likes it but you. Would you still do it? Does it still feel in line with yourself, with your spirit, with what you would do, and you feel good about it? It's fulfilled. You literally feel completely inside your body all together, your soul and your body, right? You're walking through life. I think that if it does, then you feel in line. But I think that anxiety sometimes or depression can be a sign of, hey, these things aren't in line. And that's why I love depression and I love anxiety, because when people are in pain like that, for me, a lot of times it says, hey, your heart and your head are not in line, and your body's going to force you to put them in line. It's not going to let you live anymore until you put those in line. And when you do, it'll let you live again. So I think we sometimes have really big symptoms from not living our heart and our soul in mind.
That's really cool. It reminds me of there's this Harvard Business Review article I was reading recently there's showing a study. It was talking about vulnerability and authenticity, and it was talking about how a lot of anxiety stems from this conversation, acting outside of alignment of your values, trying to be someone you're not, trying to be someone who you think you should be. And that's so true when I'm at my worst. And I like how you said that you can use some like anxiety or that depression that you said, like, to be a signal to you, as opposed to wait a minute, am I acting in harmony with my head and my heart? I really like that. We have self-reflection. We have like looking at these things. Anything besides, so there's something called you both know, the Values in Action Survey, VIA. For those who aren't familiar with it, it's a VIA. Google it. You click the link. There's self-reflection. I think another thing you can do is talk to people who know you. Just identify what your values are, what your strengths are, blind spots, and so forth. Any other ideas or thoughts or ways that people could identify and they change? Actually, for asking questions, funny you said it. They change too, because I think purpose changes. I was talking to somebody the other day about creating a temporary purpose, a temporary why, so to speak. And your why is yours. It's authentic. It doesn't have to be don't worry about it being politically correct or something that your mom or your dad thinks you should have, or your religion thinks you should have. Like, your why is your why. And there's one athlete I was working with in particular where he was struggling, just kind of felt like he was going plateauing. He wasn't as driven as he normally is. And so we're talking, and I said, well, so first of all, let's start with your why. Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? And he goes, to make it to the NFL, and it was an NFL, and he goes, to make it to the NFL, and he stopped himself. And he goes, I achieved it. I achieved my purpose, my drive, my why. This was what always drove me. And he's in his second season in NFL now, and he realized, not until that moment, that's when he realized, I achieved that. Yes, it could be a goal or whatever, but that was his why, because he always wanted it. And then he adjusted it. He found a new one, and then wouldn't you know it, again, according to him, he just found that passion again. But I like what you said, how values or whys can change over time. But any other thoughts on how you develop whys or your values, how you discover them?
Yeah. So I think those tools like a VIA. I mean, we use that. I still use that quite a bit with my clients. And people that are already high performers, sometimes we feel like we're aware of our values, but we're not necessarily living those values, right? So something is getting in our way. And so the conversations I've had recently with one guy, he's a Coast Guard pilot, right? So elite performer, right? Just has done something that very few people, do, right? In terms of general population. High performer. And he was like, Robert, I already know all these values. Like they give me a list of 24 values and I know my top ones and I'm good. So there's two aspects one is how can we be more deliberate and bring them forward more purposefully, right? So once you identify them or re-identify them and check on them again, and I agree that these are your values, how can you live them more purposefully? Because the values that we live, and from the VIA, we have the signature character strengths, right? Are values that sometimes are outside of our awareness. We're just living them and we just do them because they come from within, but we're not mindful of how we're actually doing them on a regular basis. So I think your point of talking to people that know you and getting feedback about those things. The other thing that I have people do is identify, not for themselves, but for the people around them. So if you're a leader of somebody, right, and you want somebody to possess, if you're a parent and you want your kids to possess your values, you have to be able to articulate it in behavioral terms, right? They need to be able to know, this is how I live my value, right? So one of my wife's values, it's one of mine, I'm not living it as much as I should, is health, right? So why we live health, right? And my wife works out and eats right? And so those things are teaching our kids, not just, hey, we value health, but this is how the Castillos do it, right? And that way we can start educating and teaching values in action. And I think that's I don't know if this has ever happened to you. I've seen leaders do this. Sometimes I've even done it. And somebody will ask me, hey, how'd you do that? How'd you get that client? I don't know. I just did it, right? It's a horrible advice to somebody, right? If I can say I was persistent, which is a value, right? I can say I was, I used my social network, my social intelligence, right? I used my love of learning. I dug into the research, this company of this client, and I learned all about them. So when I did meet with them, I knew everything. And so now I'm teaching them how to actually live their values. That becomes, it builds on itself. And I think then those values become even more solidified for me as I'm educating it to somebody else. So that's a way, right? I mean, but there's a lot of ways to get at that.
Yeah, I often see it in problems, right? Because I think I was just working with a client who I was trying to teach self-compassion to and had particularly difficulty, and is like, I can't talk to myself like that. If I talk to myself like that, it's pathetic. And I was just like, whoa, where did that idea come from? Where is that from? And we had to research it back to her father, who had just taught her that, self-criticism can be a really great way to grow. And it can, right? We give ourselves feedback, we give other people feedback, but that it was the only way to grow. And to be kind to oneself or have self-compassion meant you were weak. And so just, I think studying those beliefs, where did they come from? And then I just asked her that, the word that you guys are using, I said, what purpose is that serving? Is that helping you? Is it helping you? What's going to help you? And we just went through, hey, are you living on purpose? And when you were living on purpose, you start to live your values. But values are hard to change, right? Even ones you don't believe in. Like, she didn't really believe that she should just criticize everyone else all the time. And she actually didn't believe that she could only grow through criticism. She understood, I can grow through some self-compassion or some kindness to self. But changing that, she's like, it feels so fake to say nice things to myself. She's like, do people really talk to themselves like this? And I said, yes, we all do. Yes, a lot of us, a lot of us do. And this is how it sounds. And it's okay. And just, I think sometimes we can, like Justin, like you were saying, and Robert, like, I think sometimes we can learn what our values are in community with other people and saying like, oh, you do that? Oh, that feels good. I think that might be right for me too. Or, hey, how come you're so unhappy? Somebody points out you're so unhappy. It's like, oh, maybe I'm doing something out of my value. I think that we can reflect back and forth from each other. That can be helpful.
Yeah, that's cool. It kind of reminds me of the phrase that your vibe attracts your tribe. And it's cool how, like, yeah, you tend to attract certain people, and maybe the values you have, you might find yourself, oh, we all value this thing, whether it be at Orange Theory, I don't know what the common thing that everyone values there, or it's neat to be around a whole bunch of people who you have your very similar character strengths, and which also makes me think about the literature on like the shadow side of these values. Like someone who's honest may come off as a jerk or too honest, or someone who's really kind, they value kindness, shadow side being maybe they've seen as getting walked all over. And so that was something that's intriguing to me, is in my moments where when I do experience paralysis by analysis, or when I beat up on myself because I am a tinkerer and I go from place to place, that might be my insatiable desire to love of learning. Like, oh, now this book, now this book, now this book, instead of going deep into something, I'm like, oh, and to be able to recognize that. And so, yeah, this is
That's
really
interesting
interesting. I
you
didn't know
say
we were
that.
going.
That's really interesting you say that, because I see you and Robert as someone who I'm like, I've had that exact thought where I'm like, wow, like Robert and Justin, they can just stick to something, and they're like, you just makes you so much smarter and so much better. Like, you guys say things that I forgot that we used to teach all the time. Like, you said it in this. Whenever I watch you guys on social media, I'm like, oh, I forgot we taught that, because I'm over here and then I'm over there and then I'm over there, and I'm like, wow, I wish I could be like them and like really go into something.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
It's funny. You know, I've been curious about, from you guys, you know, I know, Deanna, you don't go to the ASK conference. I know, Justin, you've gone. And so the ASK conference, for those that don't know, is the Association for Applied Sports Psychology conference. And I feel like there's a theme the last few years is for elite, you know, sports psychology consultants to talk about their failures and how they overcome failures. And I think there's value in that. But I'm always curious also, like, what are the best doing the stuff we teach? What are they actually living, right? Because there's parts of things that we do pretty automatically, and there's things that we're not doing, right? We teach, but we just, for whatever reason, we don't do. But I'm curious about the stuff that we actually apply in our day-to-day lives that we're also teaching to our clients.
So for me personally, so establishing routines, like that is huge for me, establishing routines. And one thing that I've done since a little kid is I do a lot of visualization. Since I was a little boy, I've been doing it. And even to this day, I visualize all the time. I will sit and I will visualize what I want for the best version of what a good husband looks like, what a good father looks like. I'll visualize like my day ahead of time. And I don't do it on purpose. I will just find myself going what I want my career to look like. I'll visualize, and then I'll visualize obstacles. Okay, what about this? I practice visualization all the time. Again, organic. It's been since I was a little kid. I think, I don't know where it came from, but that's something as well that I do quite a bit. But yeah, those are the two right off the bat.
Yeah.
As far as
that's cool.
Yeah, I've never been asked that.
Yeah. How about you, Deanna?
I think that something that I teach a lot is acceptance of failure, for example. And you know what? I'm not going to lie, like, I'm pretty good at it. I am very good at accepting and moving forward. You know, I thought when this whole thing happened, you know, we were like, wow, what's going to happen to the businesses? You know, we are at a complete halt. We were very successful before, but heck, what will happen 6 months from now if we're not open? You know, and you know, I'm going to be really honest, and I know this sounds like a lie, but I was zero depressed. Like, the only part that's sad for me is, like, I want people to come back to jobs. I want them to have jobs. Yes. But for me, failing in the business, or saying like, oh, I failed at that, I'm totally okay with. Because I'm okay with trying something. You try that. For me, that's living. You try this. All right, you fail, whatever. That's living, and I'm okay with being alive. So that's something that, or I had before having. So now I'm 6 months pregnant, but before this baby, I've had 4 miscarriages, and I just didn't take it as hard as other people, because I just really can accept life. I'm very good at it, and like Justin said, like, I've been good at it for a long time. And then really growing up and starting to develop my self-confidence and accepting myself, then I got even better at it, because I'm like, I don't have to be good enough for anyone or anything. I'm just good enough. Just that all I can do is be me, and that's it. I don't have anything else. And once I accepted that, it helped me accept other things. So I think that self-compassion or acceptance that I teach, I'm actually just particularly good at it. And then moving forward through life. And I think optimism, right? Because I ultimately think everything's going to be fine. And then there'll be the next thing. And there'll be the next thing. And I'll be provided for, and I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, cool. That's cool. Cool to learn. I'm pretty good at dealing with failure, but persistence, I would say, is my big thing. Is just keep pushing forward regardless of what's in front of me, and just I guess that's a big thing I learned from my dad is work ethic, right? And then having those goals and then just continuing to push forward. And it might take me years, decades, but you keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing. And so yeah, that's been something that was ingrained in me, since I was a little kid as well, right? So these things are coming from pretty deep-seated places, but they align with what the things that we teach. How about on the other end of the spectrum? What are some things that you feel like you could get better at personally? That you teach, you tell people maybe a lot, and you're not doing it yourself as much as you should.
That I teach? I think sometimes I'm too nice, and I'm like, oh, just tell them that. Like, it's so easy to tell other people. I'm like, communication and authenticity is so important. Just tell them how you feel. And I do a lot, but I only do with people who I know are more accepting of it. If someone shows me that they're like, don't tell me, then I'm like, ooh, I should have told them.
Yeah.
And it really makes me hold back and skirt around issues instead of kindly and with compassion, because I think you could always be kind and compassionate, being forthright with them, which I think would also help the relationship. I have a tough time.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm very similar to that. I'm very similar to that. And it's neat because when you first initially asked the question, I immediately went to specific mental skills. Big
Right.
Five. I went,
Yeah.
and then when I heard Deanna's answer about compassion, I was like, oh, that's right. Yeah, that's I loved it. It resonated so much with me. And then I'm thinking, so for example, meditation. So right off the bat, like meditation for me, that's not something that I'm going to do. Like it's not something that I plan. And even sometimes I'll teach the tool. Hey, it might work for you, but for me personally, it's something that I'm not going to get on an app and do meditation.
Yeah.
It might be a breath. I'm aware of it, but that's something just right off the bat. I think sometimes I can be a little bit my number one is creativity. I've done the VA as of lately. I just like to think outside the box. Like Deanna, I have this weird feeling like I'm situationally disagreeable, so I don't mind conflict and disagreeing. I don't mind coloring outside the lines. However, attention to detail and organization, crossing the T, dot the I's, that's not me. And you guys know it. that's not, I don't give me rules. Don't let me fly. Let me go. Let me get messy. Let me break windows. I won't burn down the house, but let me break some windows. And so I think working with me, if you now don't know me, like that could be bothersome for some people, and I need to articulate and communicate that with people and do a better job of that. So I think that's where I struggle sometimes.
Yeah, I live in my head sometimes, so I get anxious, and and I don't practice the meditation that I teach. Right, I'm a moving meditator, so I need space to move and pace or what have you, and sometimes when I'm in my own head, it's midnight or something. And I don't want to be the creepy guy.
Also, sleep hygiene.
Yeah, sleep hygiene. Sleep hygiene. Yeah, but yeah, so it pairs with that, right? And the reason my sleep hygiene's off is because of I'm in here. I'm in my dome, just thinking about what I could do, should do, right? It helps in the persistence piece that I talked about earlier, but it's a lot, right? So yeah, it's quieting my brain. I think is important. Yes.
I have a question because I think you guys are both of you are, like you said, like very driven. People see you as like go-getters, and I think during this time, it's really hard for people to get going, right? Let's say that their job has stopped completely. And you guys are experts in that, like I think within your field, but also within yourself. So what do you tell someone that's like, man, like I wish I was going to start working out or start cooking or, get the garage organized or what have you, and I'm having a really hard time. What do I do?
So the general principle for me is I think about more is not better, better is better. So me personally, I read Jim Collins' book. So there's Good to Great, and then there's a book called Built to Last. And in this book, as he talks about building businesses, he gives this concept of bullets and cannonballs. I don't know if you've ever heard this analogy. Yeah. And he says that if you want to do something great, you can't just imagine firing cannonballs. You can't just say, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to open up this business. I'm going to
Which is what people do.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. I'm going to make these huge cannonball, big audacious hairy goals. Like there's nothing, I mean, he talks about that as well, but you don't want to shoot these huge cannonballs. Instead, you want to build this momentum. You want to start moving the needle by firing bullets. Fire bullets, see what works. So firing bullets, starting with something small. Maybe do 1 class, maybe do 20 push-ups, maybe start really tiny. I'll give you a very specific example. So for myself, so I remember when I started in this field, I didn't have it wasn't big. I didn't get hired by these organizations. I wanted to be an entrepreneur and then let it all take care of itself. And so I started, let's see what the people like. And so I started firing bullets, so to speak, with tweets. Okay, let me do a tweet a day, a post a day, a little article here, just tiny. And then over time, I just watched, oh, people like this topic. Okay, let me do a little bit longer post. Oh, okay, they like these ones. Okay, now let me do blog videos. Let me do a little video. Now let me do a podcast. Now let me write a book. And so it started with the little bullets, with the tweets. Then it moved a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, and then big. And so I think if someone's listening, fire bullets before cannonballs. Tiny little things that you can do to help you gain a little bit of momentum, and not judging yourself on how small those. It might not even be a bullet. It might be a water gun. You're squirting your little water gun right now. That's okay. And then move into a BB gun, and then move into just. But yeah, I think that's what I would.
And everyone assumes that you don't do that. Everyone assumes, oh, he just got there. And it's like, no, he didn't just get there. So they're really hard on themselves. They're like, well, he just got there. It's like, no. That was years of knowledge and study. And then it was that, into that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and to add on to what Justin just said, and to reference a researcher, Gabrielle Oettingen, mental contrasting, right? The idea of establishing of what your goals are, right? So what are the benefits? Because we think of, I want to lose 50 pounds and we're like, awesome, this is great. I'm going to lose 50 pounds. And the research actually says that as soon as we picture that, because our brains are so powerful at creating that image, that we started releasing the endorphins like we've already done it. So it actually diffuses that motivation. So you contrast that benefit of the goal you're thinking of with a potential obstacle. Sometimes we know what the obstacles are, sometimes we don't, but you can at least picture that in your mind. And then you start making a plan, right? And then she paired that, mental contrasting with her husband's work of implementation intentions, right? Which is if then, when then statements, right? So if this challenge arises, then I do this, right? So we're pre-planning for these things that we know are going to get in our way of achieving this goal, like losing 50 pounds, like writing a book, like whatever those big goals are that we have for ourselves. So if I've lost my job, right, and I need to get another one, well, it's overwhelming. But it's much easier to be like today, as Justin was saying, find these bullets. I'm going to do 10 minutes of job search, right? To just start off with, because that's what my emotional state can handle, right? And then maybe I build that up, right? And then I start applying for these jobs, not just looking at them. Right? And we start taking some actions on those, and then trying to figure out what are the challenges, and then what are my plans to deal with those challenges. And both cognitively, right? So sometimes it's a knowledge thing. I don't know what I need to be doing. Sometimes it's an emotional response that I need to deal with, right? Like this scares me. This is annoying me, right? So I don't want to do this because it's going to hurt, right? Maybe it's physical. And then dealing, having that plan to deal with that. So yeah, I think start small, having a plan. I think tackling emotions is also important. Susan David, emotional agility, being able to shift your emotions when you have a goal, right? And you're not working towards it as quickly as you'd like. Unhook yourself from that plan. I was at a client last week working on her dissertation. She can't do her dissertation because of the pandemic. the goal is still to complete the dissertation. It's like, well, you can still have that goal, but now you're just beating yourself up because you're not working towards it on a day-to-day basis. So unhook yourself from that goal, set it more realistically, and then what can you do little by little, moving in this direction, right? Sometimes we get really attached to these ideas of these big goals versus the smaller things that we could be working on. So
I like that phrase, unhook yourself.
yeah.
Unhook yourself. Who is, I think it's an AC act. They talk about diffusion, diffuse yourself. Fusion, diffusion. That's cool. How do you do it, Diana? How do you do it? Like, I mean, I imagine Orange Theory. These are people who go into Orange Theory classes, and well, I can't, it's just a petri dish of you can have a whole laboratory of emotions and goals and motivation. Like, how do you do it? And just them stepping foot in your business is just a huge step for some of those men and women.
That's right. It absolutely is, right? Because it's scary if you've never worked out before to like go work out in front of other people, but your health depends on it. At that point, many people come in because their health is dependent on it. How do we stay motivated? You know, all the stuff that we teach. That's why I actually believe much more in what we teach more than ever, right? Like teaching the coaches to motivate when to say phrases. Like when you want the prefrontal cortex to turn off is during what we call all out, right? When you're going all the way out. I don't want you to say a paragraph because I need my frontal cortex to be off so I can go all the way out. Say, go, 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 you know, run for, like, you're on fire. There's fire coming out of that treadmill. You know, these short phrases that will get you going. And actually, some of them like didn't want repetition at first. They thought repetition was bad. I'm like, no, repetition is awesome. Use the same ones over and over and over and over and over because you're training athletes now. You know, these people turn into athletes at the end. So, but I was thinking about, you know, when you guys were talking, I was like, I don't even know why do I stay motivated? Like, why do anything? You know, honestly, I don't really have to, right? I could just make things smaller and easier for myself. And sometimes I want to, trust me. Sometimes I'm like, dang it, why did I sign up for this? I think that's normal. But there was this scene in this movie, Rudy, that changed my life. It was like the time where Rudy, who wanted to be a football player for Notre Dame, and he had gone on the team, but he really wasn't playing. He was just like an extra, I don't know what you call it. He was on the team, but he wouldn't go onto the field. And he was telling his mentor, you know, I wish I would have made it. He's like, I wish I would have made it. And his mentor tells him, you know what? You're at a top university. He had started at a community college. You're playing for one of the top teams in the States. If you think you haven't made it by now, it's never going to happen. And that changed my life. I thought, you know what? I don't have to prove anything to anyone except myself. And that was very freeing. You would think it was the opposite, right? But it was very freeing. Like, oh, I could do whatever I want. I could fail because I don't have to prove anything to anybody except internally, and it has to be in line with my head and my heart. So I think ultimately for me, that's what it was. Just don't worry about anyone else. You just do it. Try things out. Do what you want to do.
That's so cool. That's so cool. That's awesome.
So I know we've been talking for, it went by. And I know we all have other things we got going on. Tell people where they can find you if they want to learn more about what it is that you do, and you know, what's the best way to get in touch with you.
For me, I just send everyone to Instagram at Justin Sua, S-U-A, Justin Sua. Just all my stuff's there. You'll
his
find
actual full last name is Sua. Your full last name, I think I can remember it. Sua Paia Sai Samia Kipenisane.
Close. Sua Paia Sai Masina Kipenisane. Very good. Nice.
Yeah.
Also, Justin, what about your podcast?
Yeah, so a podcast started in 2014, and episode just over 1,142 or something, and 3 to 5 minutes long. Just talk simple. One of the players told me it's a podcast for people who hate podcasts. It's only 3 minutes long. Just nothing fancy, but just try to provide a little mental performance principle each day. And so it's all there on you can find it at on Instagram, but it's the Increase Your Impact podcast.
Yeah.
One of my coaches told me about your podcast.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I was like, what? He's like, yeah, Justin Sua. I was like, oh, yeah, I know Justin Sua.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was great.
How about you, Deanna? Where can people find you?
I started doing meditations for my employees, because when we were out and they were working out, and if you do a meditation at the end of cardio, it lowers depression and anxiety, sometimes as well as medication. And so I started doing meditations for them. And so then I started putting them up during the quarantine now, on my Instagram at Dr. Sanchez Lira. I do a mindfulness meditation for my staff that I put out for everyone. And then on Fridays, I do an encouraging word that I put out for my staff and now for everyone on there.
That's cool.
Nice.
Awesome.
I've also been teaching class, and I don't know if I might put it out for the public, but I've been teaching my class that I developed for the University of Texas called The Psychology of Excellence, How to Be Your Best Self in Every Part of Your Life. And I've been teaching it to the employees, so I might just put it out on Zoom for everyone. And it's just a bunch of research, like we read and we love. And it's so great, right? Because we love research. We're like, this research study and that research study. And I just do that throughout the whole class on different topics, whether that's health and wellness, mental wellness, relationships, all kinds of different research topics.
That's so
Awesome.
cool.
Very cool. Yeah, so you guys can reach me at I use LinkedIn a lot. So if you log into LinkedIn, look up Robert P. Castillo, you can find me there. I have all the other stuff. I don't even remember what they are. So yeah, I know it's not great social media, but it's the truth. So yeah, look me up. And then my business is at castlecorpconsulting.com. That's my website. So. But this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great seeing you guys.
So everybody knows this. We had a team at Fort Sam Houston that was one of the best teams I've ever been on from a work perspective. We had a lot of fun, but we worked hard. And I mean, it's been 8-9 years since we've worked together, and we're still in touch and following and then continuing to grow. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for
Amanda
jumping
was
on
watching
here.
us, by the way.
Yay! Hey, Amanda.
Amanda.
So anyway,
Very
great
cool.
seeing you guys. Thank you so much.
You too.
Take care.
Take care.
See you guys. Bye.
Bye.